I'd like you to picture a group of barely supervised boys between the ages of 10 and 17 in the woods, briefly isolated from society and its pressures on them to act like civilized human beings. What is this bizarre and disturbing thought you've just put in my mind, Sean, is what you might be thinking now, and the answer is a Boy Scout troop on a camping trip. This is something that is quite familiar to me, since today I'm an Eagle Scout and even an assistant scoutmaster within my troop, but that certainly was not always the case. Throughout my formative years, I spent many weekends in the woods with the boys, and I'm a better person for it. As all scout troops do, mine would frequently go camping. We'd go on a weekend camping trip every month, and each time there was some sort of Saturday activity that was the main focal point of the event. These could vary quite a bit and included but were not limited to hiking, orienteering, biking, skiing, luging, climbing, visiting a museum, etc. And while these were always fun and memorable and we always learned a lot from them, most of the boys would have agreed that the best parts of the outings were not these Saturday activities, but rather the times when it was just us hanging around in camp with nothing else to do. And here's an example of what I mean. One fine October weekend towards the start of this decade, we crossed the Cheddar Curtain to go visit Devil's Lake State Park for a hiking trip. Now, since this is a public park and the fall is the only time of year when the Midwest has tolerable weather, there were lots of regular people there that weren't scouts. There were also other Boy Scout troops there, as well as even some Girl Scouts. Since there were lots of teenagers of both genders present, the park would host a mixer dance every Saturday night just to bring the horrors of hormonal interaction into the woods where you thought you were safe, but you weren't. And now I bet you're thinking, oh, Sean, this is going to be a story about how you embarrassed yourself in front of your troop and some girls at that dance. And to that I say, ha! Plot twist in the first video. You see, the problem was that you had to be at least 13 years old in order to get into the dance, and there were a lot of us in the troop at that point that were between the ages of 10 and 12 who wouldn't be able to go and would have nothing to do Saturday night, in addition to the older boys being gone at the dance, meaning that they couldn't help the adults supervise the rest of us. In preparation for the dance, the older boys pulled out their collared shirts and their Axe body spray, and eventually the time came for them to leave. At that point, all that remained in camp was us, a few adults who were there simply to make sure that no one got seriously hurt, and the boundless expanse of the preteen mind. And so us being lightly supervised at the age that we were, we sat there quietly for a little while, then went to bed early. Oh wait, no, that's not right. I meant the opposite of that. We immediately started looking for something to do. We discovered that on the slope next to our campsite there was a log that had fallen in such a way where it was about 4 feet off the ground at some points. I'll admit that I don't remember exactly how it escalated from there, but I can imagine that somebody got up onto the log, stood in the middle at the highest point off the ground, and then was quickly shoved off by someone else, who then became the new ruler of the log. And from there everyone started to get the idea, and very soon we were playing King of the Hill on this log. We spent the next several hours shoving each other off of this log onto the rocky slope 4 feet below. We eventually decided to call this game Bump on a Log, but looking back now it probably should have been called Bump Off a Log. But whatever, it is what it is. Don't ask me how, but nobody got seriously hurt, and we all lived to see another campout. The following spring, we crossed the Cheddar Curtain once more to go visit the Milwaukee Art Museum. This time, we didn't camp in a state park. Instead, we stayed in a camp that was actually owned by the Boy Scouts of America. That meant that there were no regular people there, and certainly no Girl Scouts. Just a few other troops who had happened to also rent campsites that weekend. Among the youth of the area, this particular camp is known for two things, and those are the pine trees, which drop these very hard pine cones that are great for throwing at people, and also the 2-story wooden fort that's in the middle of its parade field. Now that you know what we did when we found just a simple log above a slope, I'm sure you can imagine our reaction to seeing a 2-story wooden fort surrounded by the perfect ammunition. Of course, the second we had any free time, we rushed the fort and spent quite a bit of time hitting each other with sticks and throwing pine cones and just having a good old time. But right about then, the plot showed up. That's right, another troop. And they were not happy. Now, as a side note here, I'd like to point out that whenever you're with a scout group and you see another scout group, it's always just like in the cartoons where they meet another group that's just got different versions of the exact same people. So for example, if I was wearing aviators and a baseball cap, there'd be a kid down there wearing like those free fake Ray-Bans and like a football hat or something. But in any case, on with the conflict. That's our fort, they said. Get out. And then we were like, make us. And then of course, us being the rational preteens that we all were at the time, things escalated from there. And I'm not sure exactly what was said, but eventually one of the boys in the other troop said to us, in reference to our pine cones, "You couldn't hit the broadside of a barn." And in response to that, my friend Alex from our troop, from the second floor of the fort, takes a pine cone and he throws it at that kid and he hits him right between the eyes. Now, 2 side notes on that. First of all, that sounds fake in that I exaggerated that detail for the point of the story, and I didn't. Like, he really did that, and it was insane. Secondly, there's a much more famous story of him throwing something in the other one secured him a place in the lore of scouting at the national level. And that's all I'm going to say about that. In any case, as I'm sure you guessed, that was the end of the diplomatic relations. Stick swords were drawn and the sky became black with pine cones as a balsam-scented hell was unleashed upon the once peaceful field. The field ran red with the blood of the innocent as many brave warriors gave their lives to ensure victory for their brothers. Or at least that's how it felt at the time. I'm sure what really happened was that they came into the fort and we hit each other with sticks and threw some pine cones for a little while, and then everybody just got tired of it and went back to camp. Although I definitely do remember that there was a point where some of the people from the other troop were trying to come up the stairs to the second floor of the fort, and we had this log that we kicked down at them. Now, nobody ever got hit by this log, but once they saw it coming, they got off the stairs, so mission accomplished, I guess. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, today I'm an assistant scoutmaster within my troop, which means that I'm an adult leader. I even still go on campouts every once in a while. These campouts still include plenty of middle school-aged boys acting like middle school-aged boys, but the difference is that now I'm no longer one of them. There are plenty of times where I love to shake my fist at them and be like, back in my day we acted civil and not like idiots. But then I stop myself because I remember stories like what I just told you about, and I'm like, oh, right. So I'd say that as long as no one gets seriously hurt, it's fine to let the boys have their fun. Someday they'll all be adults too, and they'll enjoy looking back on their time in the troop like I do now. So now this is the part at the end that the pros of the animated storytime genre call the end card. They put their fan art there, and they put their social media handles there, so I'll do the same. Why do I care what the animated storytime genre does? Because I'm copying their format. What they do is they tell stories and animate them, which is essentially what I'll be doing. I'll be telling stories as true to my memory as possible, although technically what I've done so far is not animation. I rediscovered this genre back in December and decided it would be cool to try it for myself, despite having no experience in video editing, voiceover recording, or even drawing on a tablet. But in just under 3 months I went from this drawing to this entire video, so I'm pretty proud of the progress I've made so far. Now, this is by no stretch of the imagination a new idea, and I'm pretty sure there are now hundreds of people doing this. Despite that, I'm gonna give it a go anyway and see what happens. I don't really know how this will go, but I'm interested to find out, and I'd love for you to subscribe to come along on this ride with me, and tell your friends about me so they'll come with too. I assume that I'll get better at making these videos as time goes on, so I'm saving the better stories for later when I can do them the justice that they deserve. I doubt the next one will take 3 months like this one did, but I also don't really know how long it'll actually take, so I'll just keep you posted on social media. But until then, be sure to stay hydrated.